this field who's really brilliant. He's written several books on this topic. But one of the examples that he used like a stereo as an example, where the stereo is really loud. And this is kind of representing what's going on in their head.
Yeah.
It's really loud. The cutting is kind of their volume switch, their volume knob. It kind of helps turn things down. And he made a really good point in that he said, if you deprive them of the volume switch, the only thing you leave them is the on-off switch. That's when it becomes lethal. Okay, that's when it becomes bad. So don't just say you need to stop this and punish it. And you don't punish the behavior. You don't say you need to stop this behavior. You need to stop this cutting. No, you need to get into therapy. Let the therapist work that out.
That's the key. And that's the thing I want everybody to hear that Nick just said, because the big, huge statement in that is this is above your pay grade. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. What I mean is this is beyond the scope of what you as a teacher are supposed to know how to deal with. So when we use the metaphor of the stereo, the on-off switch, we're not telling you not to discourage the behavior. We're telling you that just discouraging it doesn't solve it, right? This is like the fruit of a tree. You have to deal with the root of the problem. And so getting to the next level of care is important. Another thing I want to tell you is don't make promises you can't keep. A lot of teachers, because they ally really easily with the student, they tend to think, well, okay, I'm going to confront the kid. And the kid will say, don't tell my parents. If you promise not to tell my parents, I'll tell you what's going on. And a lot of teachers feel like they're going to take that offer. And I'm going to tell you, you are probably a mandated reporter. You are going to need to tell your principal, and your principal is going to tell you to tell the parents. And even though that's going to be unsatisfying, it is the messy, muddy process toward a resolution that ultimately results in a behavioral health professional being invited into this. Now, when we started this conversation, we started with trying to help everybody understand that cutting and self-harm behavior is not always suicidal. And so that should cause the audience, I think, Nick, to have a sigh of relief and say, oh, okay, so don't overreact, don't freak out. Yes, and also don't delay, don't sweep it under the rug, don't say that this is no big deal. And some people, I agree with that metaphor of the stereo. I think that's true, but I want to be careful because as a parent, when I hear that statement, I can see some people misunderstanding what you meant because I know what you really meant. You're trying to talk about the root of the problem and not just dealing with the symptoms of the problem, right? But I want to make sure people understand that we're not saying that if you take away cutting, they're going to kill themselves. We're saying let's address everything at once, not just come in and say, don't do that and shake your fist at them. They need help. They need a therapeutic process ultimately to heal this pathology that's in their life.
Right. I mean, ultimately, what they're doing is a coping skill.
Yes.
It's a coping mechanism.
What are they coping with?
Right.
That's
exactly.
key.
And if we don't address that and we just remove the coping mechanism,
yes,
then what can they're going
to act out in another destructive way, whatever that is. I mean, whether it's stopped short of suicide, it's going to be another self-destructive way. So A, we need to deal with the root problem, and B, teach them new coping skills, which is also very important. I'd like to see more schools deal with that. But there's like very few mental health first aid programs in schools. And that's something I think is woefully inadequate. But thank you so much for this question. I think you are a good teacher. You are a credit to your field. You care about this child. So now take it to the next level. Do not sit on this information. It is not adequate that you've posted it to the internet. You must now go to your principal and seek help for this child.
As a teacher, a former teacher, Jim, what would your advice be in talking to the parents about how can you convince a parent that therapy can be beneficial?
You know, I've had a lot of parents that don't believe in it, think it's voodoo. I've also encountered some folks that for religious reasons, they think it's voodoo. And the way that I usually try to gentle it down is I try not to quote science at them, right? Because if I notice that's already not appealing to them, it's not convincing, I don't start there. I try to really I try to be more approachable. I try to seem less credible than I really am. So I try to come at it as, hey, I'm just a helper. And you know how kids are. I mean, they get into all sorts of trouble, right? So, my job is just to help kind of untangle the knot. That's all. You're not a bad parent. That's usually what parents are afraid of, is that you're going to tell them you're a bad parent, you did this to your child, I'm going to take your kid away, or I'm judging you.
So there's some defensiveness.
Parents are very defensive. Right. And so as a helper who targets kids or gets to work with kids, one of the very first things I'm interested in is helping your child not hurt anymore. Not placing blame. I'm not trying to figure out, I'm not a detective. I just want to help your child not hurt anymore. That's it. I want to heal your family. And I'm just a helper. That's it. So, it's really scary, and this is a really hardcore question, but, get help for that child immediately, report immediately, and try to seek a professional who can come in and assist with the situation. Your school district may not have counselors, but I promise you they're going to have some kind of mental health resource in that district. It is going to be required by law somehow. And so you need to seek those resources and immediately report.
Yeah, there's got to be some resources out there.
Yes.
In place. If not, then this is a great time for you to become an advocate.
Yes.
And work towards solving this problem in your community.
But immediately report to your boss. Yep. That is imperative. You must do that, and you're going to have to let the parents know too.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for writing in.
Thank you so much. All right, that's all the time that we've got for this week's session. Thank you to those who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by sharing this episode. You can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy or on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys.
Do you want to add your own advice to today's questions? Post your thoughts at podtherapy.net and join the conversation. Oh, I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm on vacation. This is
I'm
Robot
on vacation too. I'm not paying attention. Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
Bleep, bloop, bleep.